the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in Uganda, represented by Honorable Opolot, Mr. Jan Sadek, Ambassador of the Delegation of the European Union to Uganda, Mr. Kimiao Fan, Division Director for Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, and Uganda for the World Bank, and all protocols observed. Welcome to this high-level panel on 5 years left to achieve SDG7 and the financing solutions that will need to accelerate this. My name is Lynn Wesonga. I am a board member of the Alliance for Rural Electrification, our good host for this forum. And with me today, I will be joined by a number of public and private stakeholders who've done tremendous work already in the space and who will be talking to us about all the amazing things that we're seeing in the space, including Mission 300 and how that can be utilized to achieve scale. So I wish to introduce and welcome to the stage Ms. Nwane Vwede Obahor, who's the UNDP resident, UNDP Uganda resident representative. I also wish to welcome Mr. Sumia Banerjee, who's the regional industry manager for infrastructure at IFC. Ms. Babel Hon, who's the special representative for decentralized renewable energy at BMZ. Mr. Gillian Hewitt, who's the CEO of NG Energy Access, as well as a board member at the ARE. Ms. Camille, who's the CEO of ANCA, and also the Vice President of the Alliance for Rural Electrification. And last but not least, Ms. Carol Kowech, who's the Strategy Director, Sustainability and Thought Leadership at Schneider Electric. So we will start with a summary of where we currently are as a continent when it comes to when it comes to rural electrification and the decentralized renewable energy strides made. And we'll listen and we'll hear from Ms. Nwane. Welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. I am going to be extremely very brief because I know that you guys are going to have a lot of opportunity to listen to this esteemed panel. So my role is just to set the scene for the discussion that will ensue. And in that regard, I would like to inform everybody that this session will explore urgent actions needed to accelerate global electrification efforts. As we all know, with only 5 years remaining to achieve the 2030 SDG goals. And building on the momentum from the Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit in Tanzania, where partners pledged over 50 billion to support energy access initiatives. This session will highlight the concrete steps required to translate these commitments into impact. Discussions will focus on innovative financing mechanisms, policy reforms, and scalable renewable energy technologies. I understand this is better. Yes, so as I was saying, this discussion will focus on innovative financing mechanisms, policy reforms, and scalable renewable energy technologies as critical solutions to bridging the energy access gap. The persons represented here as stakeholders would also reflect on lessons learned and the role of public-private partnerships in accelerating progress towards SDG7, which is ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So this session will involve, on the panel here, policymakers, investors, energy developers who are all committed to fast-tracking electrification efforts in the final stretch to 2030. But let me set a bit of the context in which they'll be discussing. SDG7 is one of the most urgent and complex goals to achieve, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. At present, nearly 600 million Africans lack electricity, a critical resource for economic development and job creation. And sub-Saharan Africa accounts for 83% of the global electricity access deficit, and progress has stalled as population growth outpaces new connections. If we drill down on the numbers, it means that about 8 out of 10 people are without electricity in Africa, live in rural areas, highlighting the urgent need for distributed solutions. Mini-grids, solar home systems are already serving millions, but the scale needs to increase rapidly to meet the needs of remote communities. Electrifying public institutions such as schools and health centers are critical for delivering core benefits across multiple SDGs. Reliable energy improves healthcare, education, and livelihoods, creating a multiplier effect for community development. On the financing part, international public finance for clean energy reached $15.4 billion in 2022. Yet support to sub-Saharan Africa has remained limited. Recent shifts in development partner priorities risk even further slowing progress, increasing grants and concessional finances needed to unlock private capital and close the energy access gap. But there is hope. Recently, as we have been told, the Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit held in Tanzania in January 2025 has undeniably accelerated momentum towards SDG7, specifically around closing Africa's energy access gap. The summit produced 3 major outcomes. 1, the Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration, which set commitments and practical actions by African governments to reform the energy sector and connect 300 million people to electricity by 2030, while preventing 600 deaths annually through clean cooking solutions. Number 2, the first set of national energy compacts providing country-specific targets and timelines for critical reforms. And 3, $50 billion in pledges from multilateral development institutions to support electrification and clean cooking across the continent. My organization, UNDP, and other partners play essential roles as conveners and integrators of efforts towards SDG7, helping governments, private sector, and communities align priorities, mobilize financing, and create enabling environments needed to turn ambition into impact. Initiatives such as UNDP's Africa Mini Grids program and other initiatives across the board by other partners here, funded by the Global Environment Facility and implemented in partnership with RMI and the Africa Development Bank, are helping to build the policy and regulatory foundations for scale. While tools such as UNDP's de-risking renewable energy investment framework are helping to close the gap between perceived and actual risk, unlocking private investment for rural electrification. It's not yet to Hurudo, as regulatory barriers, financing gaps, and fragmented efforts remain critical challenges. Static, outdated regulations need to evolve, and investment flows must accelerate to match the urgency of the moment. There is also the growing opportunity that we have talked about, the momentum that we have talked about, which is building. Urgency is better understood by policymakers and partners, and local and regional actors are increasingly empowered to lead solutions on the ground. So the panel here will be discussing topics and areas such as how to translate the commitments of the Mission 300 Summit into actions and impacts. What role can partners like UNDP and others play to facilitate collaboration between government, private sector, and local enterprises to achieve sustainable growth and energy access? What are the most promising financing solutions and instruments that can be used to rapidly scale support for electrification to the last mile, given the scale of investment required? Examples of practical solutions and investment from private sector actors and other partners involved in developing and implementing energy access solutions will hopefully be discussed also, so as to build synergies and identify scalable approaches. So I implore all of you to listen very critically, and I hope that what the panel will discuss will be of immense value to everybody that has taken our time to be in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Can you guys hear me fine? Okay, great. So thank you, Ms. Nwane. Thank you for those helpful remarks, and we look forward to a fruitful discussion. So we are happy to release you at this point. So starting off with a question to Mr. Julian, who's the CEO of NG. NG has been a key player in the market, deploying mini-grid and solar home system solutions. From NG's point of view, it would be good to understand what are some of the challenges that you have faced in the deployment of these solutions, and how in the next 5 years, given we're only looking at 5 years for SDG7 to be achieved, how you see that being solved.
All right, so I will solve all the problems in the first question. Thanks for listening to my short presentation. First of all, just to give a context, yes, NG Energy Access is part of a big group, which is called NG, a French utility and international power producer. So we have roughly impacted 15 million plus people as of today, and our shareholder has invested quite a significant amount of money in order to demonstrate that the business model does work. It's not fantastic. We cannot say that we are doing a lot of money and that everything is rosy, but it's a, yes, I know some people in the room are still dreaming about it, but it's something that can work, which means that we can self-sustain our development, we can pay for our employees, we can pay for our research and development, and hence going further in the future. So to answer your question, what is needed to make it faster and to make it work? The first one is easy, cash. Let's talk about it. We need more cash. Why more cash? Because we sell on loan. Our suppliers do not like to be paid 2 years from now. So I pay my product today, I receive my money later. So cash in all formats. It can be concessional, it can be RBF, it can be grants, it can be off-balance sheet, securitization of receivable, etc., etc. We can discuss about that in details. The second one, I think, which is very important, we cannot do everything. So as a distributor, as a mini-grid developer and operator, I don't manufacture product. So one thing that would be great in this room is that someone would like to create a factory in Africa, most probably one in Western, one in Eastern, to benefit from free trade agreement in order to make sure that we can buy local products that are assembled in Africa that would make our product more affordable, and hence it's a win-win-win situation because we produce electricity from products that are produced in Africa. The third one would be most probably to accelerate programs. You are talking about M300. Yes, that's good. M300 is gathering a lot of programs that were there and adding others, but it's a time to market that makes a lot of sense. When we start applying to a program, let's talk about DARS. In Nigeria, it took almost 2 years. It will start, it's starting now. But if we want to reach universal access to energy in 2030, it's already too late. As I said, we have been able to impact 15 million. It's still a drop in the ocean. It's 680 million people that we should target altogether. Then there are a couple of things, standardization of stable regulation, both for SHS but also for mini-grid. Yes, that's still moving in some countries. A lot of progress has been made, but we are not there yet. And if we want to be able to replicate, it would be very nice when we apply for a project of mini-grid in country A, that when we go in country B, it's quite similar, because otherwise we start from scratch and we have to pay a lot of money for transaction. Legal are not cheap for those who do not know. And yeah, there are a last one maybe, because otherwise, as I said, we can stay there for the full week. A better allocation of risk. Private sector cannot control everything. We don't control land, right of use, change in regulation, FX fluctuation. That's the kind of thing that we can discuss with DFI, I5 organizations in order to make sure that we can focus on what we have to deliver, electricity to the last mile, to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind, and that by 2030, so then we should accelerate. I mean, it's not accelerating, we should have a boost, like a rocket boost, in order to reach SDG7 by the target given to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Gillian. And I think just judging from the crowd's reaction on when you mentioned cash, it's an element that resonates with a lot of the people sat in this audience today. But before we address that, you did mention the second thing on distribution. I just want to throw a question to Ms. Carol and ask, what are some of the partnerships, if any, that Schneider has implemented or is looking to explore that would typically make decentralized energy solutions a little more accessible for the low income, taking into account that, again, we are looking for a rapid deployment over the next 5 years?
So thank you very much. And just a little bit of context. Schneider Electric has been in the energy access space since 2009. And part of our sustainability program, we aim to connect 50 million people by end of 2025. And I'm glad to report that we already surpassed that target. These are numbers we counted from 2009. And we're just working on our next cycle of commitments. A lot of that number has come from progress we've made in India. We would like to make more progress in Africa, and it's hard. So we need new ideas, potentially to deploy or replicate what we've seen as successes in other regions, which probably will require, obviously, an adaptation to the context that we're dealing with. So some of the things we've done in India, we've partnered largely with local organizations who have understood the energy needs of local communities. So we have been very successful in deploying what we call climate smart village, where what started initially as a solar irrigation system has progressed into much more uses of productive users using the same source in a very cost-effective manner. And we have been adding more and more productive users for the same source as the communities required them. And maybe this is what we could think about as we deploy in regions, especially where the demand is not available at the moment, but it will grow just because there's power coming in. So that's one of the initiatives that we've seen working, and would like to see more of those tested or piloted in Africa to see if it will actually unlock the fast connection. I think the other models, of course, is working with distributors that have deep pockets or more money. I think cash is really king. We are constantly innovating from a technology perspective, but until we have cash to finance affordability, we continue to look for those solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carol. So given that everything, I think all roads lead back to cash, I just want to ask Ms. Hone a question around, we are all quite aware of sort of the turmoil that's been going on from a US-Germany relations and the implication of US injecting capital into the continent. From your point of view, what would be the effect of the US-Germany relations right now and how that affects the decentralized renewable energy space in Africa?
Yes, distinguished guest, honorable guest, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me. I'm from the German government, from the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, and that's why I would say we have now a bit an unclear situation in Germany because we had an election and the new government is not yet in office. And when you see what happened in Washington, so if there's change in the government, you have a lot of bad news for Africa. But we, Germany, we are a long-standing and reliable partner for Africa, you know. And I would say we are partners. That is very important. Not dictatorship, not unfair deals, but we are partners. And you know, we have these organizations, GIZ, KfW, and a long-term working together. And we have a lot of programs. Maybe, for example, Get Invest and Get Pro. They make this B2B matches at this conference. Or NDEF, a very important program here in Africa. Or, for example, we are supporting the programs of the African Development Bank, the FAFONG, the CEFA-Fonds. We are the biggest donor from the CEFA-Fonds. And why we are supporting all these funds, and even, for example, the SAFE-Fonds now. Why we are supporting all these funds? Because if half of the population in Africa has no access to electricity, and 90% from them are living in rural areas, that means we have to look for decentralized solutions, off-grid solutions, because otherwise we wouldn't reach all these people who have no access to electricity. And when we would like to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, energy is a key of this one, because with no electricity, you have no income, you have not a good situation in the schools. 2/3 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals you can reach better with energy, you know? And that's why we are supporting especially decentralized solutions. And when we see what can we do, we have a huge range of solutions. Because for some of the solutions are very small solar home systems. And even this one, they are really great for women. I'm now in my position since more than 7 years. And my experience is we can only overcome the situation and be successful in Africa when we are supporting the women. And with this solar home systems, we can strengthen the women. That's the one point. The other is mini-grids, for example. And so we have more and more a better situation because batteries are decreasing in the price. So we can combine the mini-grids with the batteries and then have a solution for villages far away, for maybe a solution for the last mile. But if we have half of the population has no access to electricity, it's not only the last mile, you know. So for example, in suburbs of the cities is also a problem. And what is our experience? The experience is something like we heard from the companies here. Our experience is if you, for example, will be successful, you must look for productive use because energy is one, but energy is an instrument for more income. And that means, for example, for the harvest, for cooling systems, for drying systems, for even the income, and even, for example, the light. If you have the light in the dark nights, the women can make their work and can have some income. So it's very important to have access to electricity. So, and what is our experience with something like donation and financing the systems? I learned that it's very important to have mixed systems, or blended financings. For example, with our result-based financing instrument. So we have donation, we have private capital, and at the end we have entrepreneurs in the countries. They are looking for the maintenance, and they have income because of the prices of the electricity, because electricity is not for nothing. You have to pay for it, you know. Not so much, but you have to pay for it. And this maintenance is very important, because if we are talking about decentralized solutions, we have to talk about the maintenance. It's not enough to install the hardware. We have to look what will be in 10 years. Is the hardware broken, or is there any maintenance, any service, or any people in the villages who take care of for example, the decentralized solutions. So even, for example, thank you, Mr. Van, for Mission 300, because I think we need missions. But it's very important to look for this, what I said, sustainability, for the long-term installation, you know, for 15 years, 10 or 15 years. Because otherwise we will install a lot of hardware, and I saw such a lot of systems 3 years later that didn't work any longer. So maintenance is one of the key instruments, and that means we have to involve companies, or have to involve the partners in the villages. It's very important to involve the partners in the villages for the systems. A last point is what's about innovation. And I think we are just at a step of new innovations. For example, we can see e-cooking, because one of the speakers talked about the cooking situation. And that is really bad. The cooking situation is really bad. But we are now looking more and more for e-cooking, because if we have more electricity, we are looking for e-cooking, and that is really the solution at the end. I saw a lot of such solutions in Asia, and I think we can learn from each other, from countries in Africa to others, but also from countries in Asia to Africa. So, and e-cooking is one of the solutions, but also digital solutions. For example, when we are talking about maintenance, it's good to have digital solutions, because you can't make the maintenance really effective if you have to go for 500 kilometers to one village or something like that. But if you have a digital solution, you can have a look how it's working and look for that. So we have a lot of innovation, we have less cost, and we have some ideas for new financing instruments. So I'm here to listen to you, to listen for solutions, to talk of our experience, but also to listen what you can tell me. Because when I listen to you, I can learn, and we can make it better in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that's addressing or pointing some people in the right direction when it comes to the discussion of... Can you guys still hear me? Okay, great. So we've heard about Mission 300 since the opening remarks, which means we are now getting to the guy of the moment to hear more about the strategic considerations around this particular initiative and any other initiatives that IFC is looking at to basically aid in the rapid scaling of all the mini-grid solutions or solar home system solutions. So curious to just hear from you, Mr. Sumia.
Thank you very much. Let me just start quickly by talking a little bit about IFC. So IFC is part of the World Bank Group, and we are working very closely together with the World Bank Group on the Mission 300, among many other things. And IFC focuses more on the private sector part of the solution. And but as we all discussed that in order to scale up or boost, as you said, Jillian, the access solutions, what is actually needed is that everybody has to kind of work together on the public sector side, on the government side, and even within the institutions on the private sector side, together with policymakers. So just a quick word about M300. So there are, in terms of mobilizing private sector at scale, right, particularly in the DRE sector, which is a very difficult sector, as we have all seen, right? So I think there are three major ingredients, right? One is enabling the regulatory environment. And when I say enabling the regulatory environment, again, I think Jillian talked about it from his personal experience. There are certain risks that the private sector is not equipped to take, right? And that's where you need regulatory support. We need regulatory clarity and transparency, and that is fundamental. Under Mission 300, this has basically translated into close collaboration with governments on the energy sector compacts, which capture some of these elements. And they embed reforms around utility viability, competitive procurement, private sector access into some of the programs, right? So that's one part of it, which is enabling the regulatory environment, or rather having an enabling regulatory environment. Then innovative financial instruments. Now, that is, again, a core part of the Mission 300. So we have tried to bring in some of the lessons from IFC's long work in energy sector, including in access sector. And typically what we face, and we'll probably hear a bit more from private sector, direct private sector experience, but from our experience, what we face is basically unstable revenue, right? Long periods where you cannot really predict what kind of revenue is going to come in. Sometimes there are receivables issues. And particularly in the DRE space, potentially thin capitalization, right? So what we are trying to address through innovative financial instruments is to have risk-sharing facilities, local currency facilities that take away some of the foreign exchange risks that were also mentioned as one of the operating challenges, and potentially revolving facilities or working capital-like facilities, which would allow more cash, right? So, and that is something that we have started in with the DARS program, which again, IFC and the World Bank have been working together on, Nigeria and West Africa predominantly, but hopefully we can expand in other areas as well. The third major area would be blended finance and guarantees. So when I say blended finance, I mean essentially they would, we have a platform that we call Zafiri. We have spoken about that. That's part of the Mission 300. And essentially what it does is try to bring in patient capital, with philanthropic money, private capital, along with donors who would bring in some additional kind of risk tolerance into those financing structures. Use of MEGA guarantees also to enable longer term support without having a very defined kind of exit period to which the business has to offend, because we recognize that the business is sometimes pretty uncertain in terms of its cash flows. So I guess these are the major elements of the of M300, which we believe are focused more on the implementation side.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sumia, for that overview. Maybe just pressing a little further, how would companies in the audience, because you've mentioned a number of instruments, all of them, some of them still under consideration and building, and some already even maybe being deployed. For companies listening in the audience, how do they think about tapping into some of the instruments that IFC has in place or is developing currently?
So, as I mentioned earlier, so IFC is focused more on the private sector, right? So, in terms of companies who want to access IFC's products, we have various kinds of products. Zafiri is a platform. It is probably going to be launched in over the next 6 months to 6 to 8 month kind of a time frame. We are hoping for the Q3, right? So that is very much in a building phase, and we hope to launch it with about 300 million initially. And initially, there would be the idea is that there would be some. Let me just give you a quick overview. So initially there would be some first loss kind of elements which would be coming in from concessional lenders or donors and philanthropic capital. IFC's money would be more on the commercial side, but what we would do within the platform is we are going to blend in that patient capital or the concessional capital together with commercial capital so that there is a much longer time frame. So once Zafiri is launched, that would be one of the vehicles through which a private sector can approach IFC. Other than that, IFC basically looks for companies which combine innovative delivery, strong governance, high impact outcomes, particularly in this space. And what we look for is clear business model, track record of execution, and plans for scale and impact, right? And the products that we have, Zafiri is more on the equity side, but we also have guarantees, which is there is a unified platform for guarantees, which is under MIGA right now. We have our direct investments, which is more on the debt instruments, but these are more on the commercial space. And as I mentioned, we are trying to house most of our equity instruments through the Zafiri vehicle over time.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Maybe just throwing a question to Ms. Camille, who's the Vice President of the Alliance for Rural Electrification, speaking from the point of view of the association, which aggregates the point of view of developers or private sectors. What would you say are some of the initiatives that M300 can take to ensure success? How do they essentially turn the pledges into, well, action?
Okay, let me first start by showing what an alliance and cooperation is. Blending in. Okay, perfect. Thank you for your question, and happy to be here. So indeed, I'm from the private sector, but I'm also representing the Alliance for Electrification through the board, which I'm vice president of. I'd say, okay, I think that we have only a little time, so I'll try to be brief. Also, we are way beyond schedule, so let me try to be short. As much as I think everyone appreciates the M300 initiative, I think that we need to acknowledge that with the little time we have ahead, we need to not repeat the mistakes of the past and not make Mission 300 just a replica of what has been, tried already in the past. I think that a lot of the comments that I've heard here and there from private sectors, but also financiers themselves and investors, is that we've seen initiatives in the past. The question is this another one, or is this really going to be, the unlocker to, achieving SDG7 by 2030? I'd say that I may have just a few points, few bullet points, maybe just even words that I'd like us to keep in mind moving forward and trying to contribute to achieving SDG7, or at least the 300 million, energy access for 300 million by 2030. I'm very much aligned with what Gillian has been mentioning. I think that cash is very much of the essence here. And by that, obviously, we mean a certain type of instruments that may be more adapted to this sector. I think very much appreciated as well that the Zafiri project was mentioned. I see in the crowd some of the builders of this very instruments. Let me just say, and let's be clear, the expectations are very high, especially from the private sector. And this is a very good information to also hear that in the next 6 to 8 months, the Zafiri program will be implemented. But that means that it's not before 2026. So we're already missing a year, you know, in the calendar or the planning that we have up to 2030. So that drives me to the second bullet point, which would be timing. And time is of the essence. So that means launching this program and making those instruments available as soon as possible. But that also means that the processes for unlocking this money, for implementing it, for disbursing, need to be much more streamlined and light than what has been done in the past. There is no way we can afford to lose 18 months or 24 months of processes to go through due diligence and get approved. This will only leave, simple math, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half to implement. So it's absolutely not possible. So time is the second element. The third element in my mind, and as again, through all the discussions and what I hear from all of the members, or lots of members within the association, is coordination. We need to coordinate more, but look, a lot of us are not part of this alliance, but the alliance is really representing and carrying the voice of the industry. I think that financiers also need to get along more and need to align. There is something really strange, and let me ask you this question. Do you find it normal that if a company, let's just say ENGIE or Anka, we apply to a funding facility, we go through a due diligence process and a KYC, and once we're approved, we still need to get a matching funding, and we have to apply to another due diligence process. Why isn't it the same? Why can't you all align on the due diligence processes so that we do it once and only once, and then we're good to go? If you trust each other, if World Bank can work with the EU, with the German government, with the African Development Bank and so on, if someone approves, the other ones should just say, okay, that's good to go, we approve as well. This would definitely streamline the process. So disalignment, coordination, but also alignment. And I'm going to pause there. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you very much. So I guess we only have 5 minutes, and I do want to get quickly across the board. Maybe I will skip Camille on this because she already touched on the urgent actions from her side. Timing, process, coordination has to be done. From the rest of the panelists, would be good to just hear what are some of the urgent actions that you think need to be put in place, because we're now looking at essentially 4.5 years.
So I think one of the comments I would give is really, how do we build skills to meet the required expertise to power 300 million people? I think that's something that we need to build as we work towards these connections. We've focused a lot, and we know financing is critical, but we need skills. So one of the partnerships that I forgot to mention is our involvement in skills development, where we partner with TVET institutions to build skills in electrification. And I think there are many other parties that are doing the same. And back to Camille's question, it's probably a point where we need to align all efforts towards building the skills to meet the need.
You know, so I think we don't have to look only for the next 1.5 years. We have to look for the next 10 or 15 years, because I would like that all the systems we are now installing are working in 10 or 15 years. So we have to look for the sustainability. And we have a lot of of good experience in the last years. So we can work with this experience, but I'm very close to you because we must work together with the people on the ground, because they have the knowledge and they have the possibility to work with the systems and to work successful. And at the end, we would like that these people have a perspective in their villages. That's not only access to electricity, but also more income in the villages, more perspective in the villages, that the people don't have to go to the big cities and more, but they can stay there in the rural areas and have more income. So yes, work together with the people with more skills, yes, and with, in your head, sustainability.
Look, I think I said pretty much what I wanted to say. One additional point occurred to me. So under the overall architecture of Zafiri, which I had mentioned, right? So there is also going to be more like a capacity building and TA component. So I fully recognize the need in many of these to contribute towards capacity building to the extent that that IFC or the World Bank Group is able to. So I think that's again a pretty important part. Yeah.
Can I just add something before Gillian? Just one last thing, going back to the cash thing. The level of patience of the money that is coming in. I think that if we look over the past century, infrastructures have always, required time for return, and this is the way society built themselves. They need time, they need investment. I think there is no reason why the DRE sector couldn't be relying on more adapted funding mechanism, including more patient, more patient capital and long return expectation. I think that is absolutely key. That all of the parties, all the stakeholders agree on that and lift the pressure upon the project.
All right, so taking into account that all of that is possible, that we have the cash, that we have the organization aligned, that we have the technology to make it happen, there is one thing that we need to accelerate: simplification. Let's stop over-engineering. The criteria that we receive as developer, as private sector to demonstrate that we can make it happen are overcomplicated. When they are RBF, we need to do many things to get the money back. As I was explaining, cash is important. So let's simplify. The more we will simplify, the more players will come, the more people will be empowered to grow the sector, create jobs, etc. Simplification would be my last word.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I can see we are at time. I just wanted to say thank you to the audience. Please feel free to engage. I am offering up our panelists time. Feel free to engage with them to better understand maybe a viewpoint that you had. Thank you very much to our panelists for all of your insights and for sharing that with the audience. And yeah, I think back to David.
Thank you. I have 30 minutes of speech prepared. No, of course not. We have a bit of a delayed coffee break now. It's outside. The ushers will guide you this floor downstairs. And we will be back in 15, 20 minutes for the next panel. And with that, thank you so much, dear panelists. You are released. Here.